All right. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. You're right now. Very.
They give to everybody at graduation.
All right, so 6:33, let's go ahead and get started. Attendance for the audio recorder, we have Evan, Brian, Jen, Shelley, Linda, Pam, Nina, Sid, Sarai, Kelly, Paul, that was Paul, and myself, Rainey. Our guests, we have Paul from Ricker Eckler. We have Eric Fisher, and we also have Rod
Davidson.
Thank you so much, Jason, from OBES. So to start us off, Rod has been kind enough to come in and speak to us this evening. So I wanted to give him the room. I don't have any formal, here's the questions we want to fire at you, Rod. Just, I know that you've been through this before, and share all your wisdom with us.
Well, that shouldn't be long. Got to sneak in here. So, thank you for having me. I do these quite a bit, and I will tell you before I start, there's no right answer, right? So it's going to depend on what you guys want to do and what you want to be. Paul and I are buddies from Ricker Eckler. We practiced law together for a long time. So don't hold that against him. It really, there's so many things you can do in a charter. I think fundamentally the question becomes, it's like trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, right? So that makes it super hard to do. I don't know anything about Minerva Park other than it exists. I don't have any preconceived notions of how you operate now or how you would like to operate. I understand you've met for a couple of months, so I'll just start some topics, and if you have questions or are worried about something, just ask me. I can give you my best guess on what that is. So sounds like you haven't chosen yet your form of government. All right, so that gets super exciting right off the bat, right? So what can you tell me about Minerva Park and what you would like it to be?
We're a pretty small community. Our population is not going to probably get much over 2,000.
Mm-hmm.
We also don't, so I work at OBES.
Okay. Right.
We do not have nearly the size of industry that OBES has.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just sort of the community.
Every community is different.
Snapshot.
Right.
Yeah.
What is your current, obviously you're a statutory village right now. You have a mayor and 6 council members, I presume. You haven't made any statutory change to that. All right. So as you decide your form of government, I'm sure you discussed at some length probably what those forms are. And ultimately the decision is, budgetary in some respects for how many people you have work for you, how much you can afford to do, and then ultimately who you want to be in control, right? And strong mayor format is a way where you rely primarily on the mayor to operate your village, which is great until you get a lunatic mayor, and then that's horrible, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know your mayor. Actually, I do know your mayor. But so trying to make that choice is hard because you're not just writing a charter for tomorrow, you're writing a charter for the next 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years, right? Going with a manager style is advantageous simply because the people who do what I do are pros at doing that, right? And believe it or not, there's more to running a city or a village than you would think. There's a lot of different things that come into play doing that. So I can't advise you which one of those is going to be best for you or where you end up on that. What I can tell you is that what I've learned over the years, what I think is important for your continuity is the power that you give to your chief executive, whether that's the mayor or a rotating mayor or some sort of administrator. So in the world of politics, people come and go. Like I said, you can get a lunatic mayor, you can get a lunatic administrator, you can find them pretty easily. The question is, how much power do you give them to cause destruction or to advance the community, right? It's a dual-edged sword. Where we've established our continuity is at our director level. So we have a strong mayor format, 6 council members, and you can choose your number of council members, right? And then our mayor is a part-time mayor. I'm a full-time city manager, village administrator, and I answer to and can only be fired by the mayor. If that makes sense. Then the statutory framework that you're in right now, your council on any given day can fire anybody that they want. I don't think councils should interfere in employment decisions. That's me personally. And the rationale is it's hard to answer to 6 masters or 7 or 8. It makes it tough for your employees. So the question becomes, all right, so new mayor gets elected, mayor brings in his or her administrator, if you chose that form, and they are doing horribly, and the citizens vote out that mayor. Should the new mayor be stuck with that administrator? And we decided no. Why would you, right? So the mayor can fire that administrator. By the same token, the mayor deserves a fair shot at implementing their agenda, and so we wanted them to be able to hire their own administrator and not get stuck with someone else's and have that kind of fight back and forth. So those mayor administrator spots, no matter how you line up, whether it's strong mayor or a strong administrator, you want to kind of tie those two together, I think, my best advice. Below that, you're going to have a level of directors, people who manage departments. And randomly firing directors is a dangerous thing to do, because more than likely, those are going to be the people who have some institutional knowledge. They're going to be the people who are probably here the longest, which isn't always a good thing either, but can be, right? And so they're the people who are going to remember when we put that sewer line in over there, why we did it the way we did it, and why it's there, and so on and so forth. So the question becomes, for us, what we did is say we wanted to protect that level of employee. We didn't want them to be fired on the whim of the mayor, and we didn't want them to be fired on the whim of the council. So what better way to make it almost impossible to fire somebody than to make the mayor and the council agree? So to fire any of my directors, you have to have the mayor and some number of council members. Now, it's your choice what that number is. You can make that a majority, a super majority, unanimous, however you like to set that up. But what I think that does is provide some level of stability for your town. When you go out and try to develop a town, village or city, whatever that thing is that you want to accomplish, and you folks all obviously have given your time to your community to be here. And certainly I'm assuming that most of you are here not to destroy it, so you're probably here to try to help accomplish something, right? So when you give that kind of time over and you do those kind of things, the people who come and deal with you are going to look for some level of consistency. In other words, if you have a developer that wants to build a $10 million project, if they come in and realize that you've fired every director that you have in the last 2 years, and that you're on your 5th administrator, they're going to get scared about spending that kind of money with you. By the same token, if you've had an awful one for 25 years and they have a horrible reputation, you're going to do just as poorly, right? So try to create some sort of consistency both for your residents and for the people who you're trying to attract to invest in your community or move in your community. That's why we made that layer of protection. Below that, everyone else below that in my setup is fireable by the mayor on any given day for any reason. Never by the council, again, because we made our attempt to try to separate the legislative and executive branches of government as best we can. And the legislature, what you want out of the legislature in your town is going to be important as you go through making your decisions about how you set this thing up. I know I've rattled on a bunch. I'll stop the questions so far. No one's asleep yet, so.
So I've actually had a question basically since I found out that OVETS decided to include a administrator for their form of government. How much of the size of the industry complex of OVETS fed into making that decision? Because there's a company I work for, Cardinal UPS, FedEx,
Sure.
like, I think you go on that list. Like, I'm sure you know them better than I do.
Mhm.
How much of that fed into the decision to go towards having an administrator as part of your government?
I think it was important to us because what's hard to realize, and difficult to say without offending anybody, including my bosses, and keep in mind, I was an elected mayor for 3 terms. So I've been a mayor, I'm a lawyer, I have a short attention span, so I've had a lot of jobs. So when you deal with the things you deal with in a municipality, it takes special skills and training, right? And not every mayor has that. So to try to come in as a mayor who, my mayor's a machinist. He is a fantastic machinist, right? He's been doing it his entire life. He's one of the rare craftsmen that still hand turn stuff and all this. So when you're dealing with that stuff, that guy's as knowledgeable as anyone in the world. He doesn't know the first thing about forming a community reinvestment area and writing a contract for economic development, right? And he'll admit that readily. That doesn't mean he's still not in charge. It doesn't mean he's not involved. He is, and he participates in that stuff. But he also realizes that that's not what he does.
Yeah.
Whenever you put yourselves in a position where you're asking your elected officials to do things that they don't do, it's a challenge. And within the operation of a city or village, you are, of course, required to do a number of things, right? So for me, I have to understand how our roads are constructed and maintained, how we procure, distribute, and maintain our water systems, our electric, gas. We have electric and gas, but sewer systems, how you engage with other communities, both locally and at the county and the state and the federal level. A lot of what we do is real estate management. We're managing either the real estate that we own or helping our residents manage their real estate. Ton of legal work, as anybody would tell you who involves them. You have to understand the human resources process because you have, those folks who work for you. Police departments, fire departments, all the challenges you go with them. They all have their own special rules. So being an HR rep from a company does not prepare you to understand how OP&F works or how firemen work, how police officers work.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is kind of a special skill. Usually learned by doing it over some amount of time. And there's obviously I have an undergraduate degree in business administration and then a law degree and several other kind of study things after that. So the question always becomes, all right, you can have a mayor, it's the nicest mayor in the world, but doesn't understand the first thing about the business of what you do, and that can be dangerous for them. It can be dangerous for you to make those kind of choices. So that's really the things you got to consider, and it can't be based on the mayor you see today or the mayor you might see 5 years from now, right? You're writing something for the rest of history, theoretically, or until they change your stuff. So challenge, I don't know what your answer is there. A lot of bigger places are moving to professional managers just because the amount of things that we have to do that are complicated. There are 700 villages roughly in the state of Ohio. Some of them have administrators, some of them are mayor. There are Franklin County cities that operate off the mayor alone with some support from staff. They do okay. Like nobody's city's burned down recently. So those are all choices you guys have to try to make based on who's here, and what you do, and what you want.
So are you, as far as your budget goes, with all the industry close by, what about all the?
Yeah, we're surprisingly well off, and if I showed you the numbers, you'd be shocked at how big my village is compared to a lot of the cities in Franklin County.
So I guess one of the things we have to decide, so we have enough money to hire an administrator.
Yeah, so administrators are like anything else in the world. They cost money, and you usually get what you pay for. I know there are city administrators and village administrators out there who are doing it for $8,000 a year part-time. I know some that are making $15,000 or $20,000 a year. When you start getting into the all-star level, you're into the $150,000 to $250,000 a year. Part of that has to be your consideration of, is that what we need here? Do we have that much stuff going on? So it's understanding what you have going on. If you have big developments going on, if you have complicated things going on, then you want to consider having pros to it, right? Even if you want a strong mayor format, as long as you have a strong mayor that understands their limitations, you can always contract that stuff. Hire all these guys to come and help you figure it out and fix it. You don't have to do every bit of it on your own. So the question is, are those big challenges you face, those complicated challenges, are they intermittent? You know, we have something to pop up a couple times a year, or are they daily? We're fighting big challenges every day. That makes a difference, I think, with respect to, you know, what you need in there and what you want to pay for someone being in there. I didn't have a chance to look at your budget, but I know you guys do relatively well. You're not, I think you probably have more money than you think you do based on, you know, what I know of it. Government's always cry broke, that's what we do. But that's not necessarily always the case, so you figure out your government, right? You figure out your form of government. That's an important place to start. That's going to drive kind of everything else you do. And I can't tell you what that right answer is. You have to figure that out when I'm going and driving back down 270. Once you get past that, then you start to get into the weeds of some stuff. It gets a little more complicated, right? So if we talk about, and if I'm repeating something you already know, forgive me. Sometimes it's just the joy of hearing myself talk. You have home rule authority. So I probably explained what home rule authority is to you, right? So home rule authority is just that in Ohio, and we're not unique, but we certainly are one of the places that have a very powerful home rule ability. Home rule comes in degrees, right? Home rule is essentially how much power we have. In Ohio, we are extremely powerful. In other states, not so much, right? So in Ohio, we have a constitutional right to home rule authority. So anything comes out of the Constitution is a big deal, right? In the Ohio Constitution. And then within that, we have the right to completely control without interference anything that is a matter of local self-government. You say, wow, so anything that's local self-government, we can, with a charter, we can do whatever we want. Absolutely right. The trick is understanding what is a matter of local self-government. Back in the Constitutional Convention, when they came up with this concept of home rule, they didn't bother to define that. And so what's happened in the last 100 years of jurisprudence is that we say, this is a matter of local government, we're going to do whatever we want. And the state says, no, we're going to do what we want. And then the fight breaks out, right? And then you end up in a lawsuit, and you end up in the court, and then some judge decides whether it is or isn't. So over the last 100 years, we've had some decisions where they've been declared, where they have declared this is a local self-government matter, like contracting. Contracting is a local self-government matter. Currently, you have to publicly bid any project that exceeds $50,000. Like a good faith estimate exceeds $50,000. So think about that. You're going to do a parking lot renovation out here. You probably get almost 50 grand if you did that in a piece by the lake. You have to bid that. So that means that's got to go out. You have to put 2 ads in the newspaper. You have to hire an architect or engineer, draw up a set of plans, have everybody come in, have meetings, have all the people turn in their bids, open all the bids, and then you get 3 bids that are $50,000, $51,000, and $52,000, and it's taking you 4 months worth of time and $10,000 worth of staff time to put all that stuff together. To me, that's insane. But that's what the state requires. In my town, my bid threshold is $150,000. So we don't start to bid until we're past 150. Now, that is a genius and dangerous idea all at the same time, right? Because that presumes that I'm not going to do anything stupid, which so far I haven't, but we'll see. So those are the kinds of things you can control. So because you can control contracting, you can control what are the state rules. So you may say, we want our bid threshold to be $5,000 or $500,000. You can change that to whatever you want to change it to. We don't want to have to put ads in the newspaper because we know those ads are expensive. And if you work for a newspaper, I'm sorry, they are expensive. But newspapers want you to put those ads in, right? You can say, we will be able to hold our bids open longer than the 60 days that the law requires. We'll hold our overheads up for 90 days. There's all kinds of these little changes that you can make on how you do that. And you can create a system that makes sense for you, saves you money, is the most efficient system that you can have. And then in that arena, there are things that you can't control, like prevailing wage. So the state has said prevailing wage is a matter of statewide concern. And when they do that, that means you don't get to touch it. So prevailing wage is one of those things we have to get stuck with paying. So the state came out with this rule and said, everybody's got to pay prevailing wage because we're the government. We should be good people. We should pay a living wage to everyone. And then the state started a $1 billion school building program. What do you think the first thing they did was? They eliminated the prevailing wage for themselves, right? But not for us. We're still paying it. So that was, I had to take that jab because I think that was bad. But that's it. So you have all these kind of things that you control. And then you have, so there's two areas that you are able to control. The first is matters of local self-government, and the second rather, that you have some limited police powers, meaning that you can vary a little bit with some of that stuff, but you can't ever bump up against what the state does. And then we have this weird category of the state declares itself in charge of something we think they're not, and unless it gets challenged, that's where you end up. So for instance, how a house is built in Minerva Park, who do you think should control that? All right, that seems relatively straightforward. Who has more of an interest in the way a house is built in Minerva Park than Minerva Park does? The size of it, whether it has a basement, what it looks like, right? And for time immemorial, that was a matter of local self-government that we all controlled, and we had our own building codes, our own building departments. And then 7 or 8 years ago, probably all the contractors who had to go to Minerva Park and then go to Obetz and have a different set of rules, and then go to Hilliard and have a different set of rules, went and complained. And the result of that and their complaint was that we now have an Ohio residential building code that applies to all of us. So we no longer get to choose that. Now, you would think immediately that the cities and villages would go, wait a minute, that's a matter of local self-government. Like, we should have that one for sure. And so we did, and we sued, and the court said, no, it's not. And the state said it was a matter of statewide concern, and we believe it, and that's the end of that discussion. So we now answer to the state with a residential building code, which I personally think is not the smartest thing I've ever heard, but that's the nature of it. So you're going to struggle to find out where you have abilities and where you don't, and then with that, figure out what you should do or shouldn't do. All right, I'll stop there. I might have said too much, and I'm going 100 miles an hour, but that's not.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that, and I'm just curious about the way Obetz does this. You mentioned that Obetz has a part-time mayor and a full-time administrator, and it's the mayor. The mayor has higher fire over the administrator.
Yeah.
What are the mayor's other duties in Obetz?
So the mayor ultimately for us is the answer. It's a strong mayor setup. So a strong mayor with an administrator. So I'm the full-time city manager. But ultimately the mayor makes the decisions about what we do or don't do on a day-to-day basis. Now, 99% of those he doesn't bother himself with, right? Because he doesn't care who mows what piece of grass first or where we're patching potholes. And that's a hard thing to get across to elected officials too, right? Elected officials, the way I explain it to mine is you have staff rowing the boat. So the elected officials should be steering the boat and making sure you're not running on the ground, right? But you get in a lot of communities where the elected officials want to get down the weeds, and that causes a host of problems. I'm lucky that mine don't, but you know, I've represented hundreds of municipalities, and I've seen every version of them, and there are some of them where they absolutely do, and they get into police seem to be the favorite of, right, of the elected officials. Everybody likes to know what the police are doing, where they're at, and when they did it. So you spend, and they are a large part of your budget, so we spend all this time talking about the police. Meanwhile, you could be putting together a $100 million economic development deal, nobody cares. So that's the madness of it. And so part of what you do is hope that your elected officials realize that they should be focused on steering the ship. And you hire competent people like Eric to do the things you expect them to do, and you hold them accountable for it. But believe me, Eric does not need your help to do what he does. He's good at it. I know he is. And I know that we want to be involved as an elected official. And I don't know if any of you guys are elected officials or not, but elected officials want to be involved. They want to be helpful. But everybody comes to the table with their skill set. So I have an elected official that's a union pipe fitter. What do you think he wants to help me with? Pipe fitting, right? Anytime I build a building, he's going out to look at the pipes, and I'm 100% sure he's a lifelong friend of mine, so he won't be mad if I make fun of him on TV. But that's his skill set, and elected officials want to be helpful. That's why they're there. So that's their skill set. So I think we take their help. I have an elected official that's a computer guy. I say that loosely in the sense he does this very specific thing relating to how you evaluate data. And so as soon as he got on council, I was like, here's a bunch of data. Help me out. He's way better at it than I am, right? So finding those spots to be helpful is important for them because they want to be involved, but certainly they also have to be understanding that they're steering the ship, and that's all going to be what you tell them they can and can't do, right? You guys are the ones who get to set that up. How many of them it takes to pass a law, right? And if it's a specific kind of law, you can change it from 4 votes to 5 votes. How many of them are on your council? You can change that number to whatever it is. You change it to any different kind of number. So most of what I figured out over the years is stuff that I screwed up, right? And then I look back and go, oh, that was a dumb idea. And so I go back and try to fix those things. So for instance, an example on my charter, I wrote with exacting specificity how we would contract, because I was smart and I could describe it better than anybody else in the state of Ohio. So I have this whole section about how we contract. Fast forward, whatever years, 10 years now, and I realized I should have just written, we will contract however the council says that we will, period. Because all I did by writing all that stuff down was lock them into a bunch of stuff, and so they have to follow some of those rules. Luckily, they're good ideas, the only kind I have. But yeah, it was like, I look back now, I'm embarrassed that I didn't see that you are giving them the authority. So if we would have just said, our contracting procedure will be established by ordinance, then our council would be super flexible, right? They could pass an ordinance about how much their bid threshold is, how long they want to bid, all those kind of things they can control. And that's a lot of what charter is like, how much of this do you want to detail out and get down the weeds versus how much of it do you want to give them the power to make decisions and to be nimble and be able to help your community. And I can tell you at the speed with which we move now, being responsive and nimble is super important. Because you're competing with everyone else in the world, right? You're competing with me, you're competing with your other Franklin County communities. We are all competing with Cincinnati and Cleveland. We're also competing with Louisville and Indianapolis, and, San Francisco. It gets crazy when you look at some of these things about how far we have to compete. And if you haven't set up an efficient form of government, you will lose that competition. All right, so if it takes 6 weeks to get a building permit here, and I can do it in 24 hours, I'm going to do better at attracting people to come and build in my town than you are. If you put so for instance, we have a 6 or 7 member planning and zoning commission, which was, a couple of folks on the charter commission thought, let's create some more positions so we can get some more participation. Well, guess what? We can't fill them. So all the time we're begging people to be on P&Z when we should have just probably created a 4-member P&Z or, a 3 or a 5 so that we could cover it. That was a mistake for us. So now we're begging people, we don't pay to be on P&Z. So we're always begging people to cover that. You can do really stupid things in a charter. I'll give you the story of that. So we're sitting at a charter meeting, we're writing our charter just like this. I was the mayor at the time, and there was a fire. And so it was in the park or next to our park. So the cops come in and said, hey, Mayor, there's a fire out there. And I go, all right. So I tell all the folks at the table just like this, and I'll be right back. I go out, check the fire. I go out there, it's just a guy burning, leaves in his backyard, no big deal. I come back, And we have this rule that all men must wear ties at council meetings. That's in my charter. All men must wear ties at council meeting is in my charter. Yep. In my charter, not an ordinance, in my charter, all men must wear ties at council meeting. And it was because we had one council member who ran a construction company, and he would work all the way up to the council meeting, and he would show up and he'd have dust all over him, being a t-shirt or whatever. And one guy on the charter commission didn't like that, so we have in our charter, I guarantee you, the only charter that requires wear ties, right? So then you spring that on your council, and they reacted. Most of them wore ties anyways, but I had one council member who's a notorious smart aleck. That was always fun, and so he bought a bolo tie, one of the cowboy ties. So, and then he would put it under his shirt like a necklace, and so he would walk into every meeting, and he would go like this, and show him his bolo tie. And he said he'd wear a golf shirt with a bolo tie for every meeting. Dumbest thing, right? A waste of time. So you can do things like that that are stupid. I would suggest that you don't. We also had at the time a guy who was adamant that OBETs should have English as its only language. So he said he wanted to pass a rule that OBETs could only speak English. I said, that you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. That's one of those things like, first of all, that makes us all look like assholes. So certainly don't do that. And secondly, it's just stupid, right? So luckily everybody kind of pounded him, but he went on at every meeting. He would bring it up again, like bring it up my speaking English thing again. It was just insane. So you'll probably have those moments, but try not to. And then for one of our, so it took us 3 times to pass the charter. In the second charter attempt, they got all the way to the end of the charter, and a fight broke out. I don't know what the fight was about, but not a fight. Yeah, we're not afraid. Yeah. So whatever it was that caused it, the charter commission split in half. And they put out the charter. So once you get down to the writers, you put it out to all the voters and they get to vote on it, right? So this half campaigned against the charter because they didn't like what those guys put in it. And this half campaigned against the charter because they didn't like what the other guys said. So the entire charter commission printed it, published it, and then argued against it. Foolish, right? Sure.
So this physically fight.
You were formerly the mayor of Ovex.
Yes, ma'am.
Now you're the city
I'm
manager.
the city manager, yeah.
So who sets the strategic vision for your, it's a village or?
It's a village, yeah.
Who sets the strategic vision for your community? Is it you now as the city manager? Is it still the part-time mayor?
So that's an interesting question because I think we do it maybe differently than you would expect. And so it'll be a long-winded answer, so forgive me. But over the time that I've done this job, any of the jobs, I've had good councils, bad councils, good employees, bad employees, good cops, bad, I've had them all. And what I've figured out with respect to managing my public officials is that if you accept input from all of them, and if you all decide things together, life is super easy. So when you say who sets our strategic vision, it's all of us. It's me, my council members, and my mayor. No one has any, and we take input from the public, but even though our charter doesn't lay it out in a way, the charter may have specific duties and jobs for us, it's a management by committee. So all my council members know about stuff way early that in the traditional format you might not have. So we do it together.
And my second question was you mentioned that you're competing against everyone and you want $100 million economic development. If you look at Minerva Park, which is almost built out, so there's no more space to build unless we're annexing the property, and I'm not even aware of how you do that or whatever. So we are sitting in a confined village. How are we competing with others in the state?
You compete every day for the ability to attract people to live here and for whatever businesses you have. So you say, we don't want anybody new to live here. So you're telling me that you want to drive down your property values because you don't want anybody to come. I'm assuming that's not true. I'm assuming that you want your property values to increase over time, right?
How would you, and I know this is in your village, how would you propose an economic development plan for Minerva Park? Is it,
Sure.
so what does the charter do by getting a city manager? Is that someone who comes with a vision?
It can, for sure, I mean, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I don't think the charter is tied that much to your economic, development future. You can hire folks to come and help you, you can have someone on staff to do that. In terms of how do you
And you
make,
can still do that under current law.
Yeah,
You
sure.
don't have a charter.
absolutely.
You can hire anyone you want
Yep.
if you wanted.
That charter doesn't make one bit of difference about that at all. What the charter makes a difference on are your competitive processes, right? How quickly you can get through some of that stuff, how quickly you can, and how efficiently you can set up your government to operate.
So if you're bidding in a lot of buildings, you know, you're developing your property,
Yeah.
then that's really important to you.
Sure.
If you don't have a whole lot of property to develop, and I understand that
Yeah.
but is it a pivotal issue that a village should make a decision on in terms of, okay, well, I can, change the bidding process, given that, let's say we want to build a building here for the community or whatever. If it was one big building over many years, is it worth it to go through all, I mean, I'm still not convinced that the current way of governing, which I'm not quite certain how it's under the state law, versus the charter makes that much of a difference if you're really not bidding that many projects out.
Sure, what's your,
Getting built, the lake needs to be dredged, but that's been ongoing.
what's your favorite Minerva Park business?
Well, we don't tax any of the businesses, you can see the businesses on Cleveland Avenue, it's only,
You guys don't have an income tax?
oh, yeah.
I'm gonna jump in for a second. So they have a very small, they have small streets that are desperately in need of some larger scale planting. They do have, they're much more of a better community, as I would describe it. However, I think to Nina's point, if I may, there's plenty of things to bid on in the municipality, especially going up lakes, and they've got new subdivision roads, everyone's favorite, and those require you to bid from time to time. So there's a lot of, as you can attest to, there's a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah.
They will need to bid on regardless.